Hello. But I do want to tell you, I want to talk to you about privilege, because I have the privilege to do this great thing I'm about to start whenever the fan is ready. But I promised you videos of Ellie. And if you stick it out to the end, I'll have more videos of Ellie for you. So let's get started. So my privilege is not lost on me. I see it. Could afford to have solar on my home, to put solar on my home. I could afford to do this van tour and have solar on the van. I could afford to change out my old gas range with an induction range that's very clean and doesn't pollute inside my house, and get an energy efficient heat pump instead of an air conditioner. And for most folks, it feels like responding to climate change is only something you can do if you're privileged. As an aside, luckily, the Biden administration, through the Clean Power Plan, Clean Energy Plan, also known as the Inflation Reduction Act, has done a lot to get resources into communities that need them to help get energy efficient appliances, put solar on homes, have community solar, bring jobs back into the country that are all clean energy related, and build that job force. That's really great, but it doesn't mean that we should stop talking about privilege and where it comes from. But I want to talk to you about redlining as it relates to my personal life. So people talk a lot about intergenerational wealth. It's a very academic term, but it really means that previous generations had the wealth, had the money to build wealth, which is the accumulation of money, to then pass that to their kids, who could then use that to make more money and pass that to their kids. And if you were denied that ability to make that intergenerational wealth, you're going to have a lot more problems 2, 3, 4 generations down the road. It's a lot harder to get by with the American dream, right? So I was thinking about this, and I thought, have you ever looked back at your own family to figure out what benefits you got that others did not? Very specific. Like, we can talk about it in the aggregate, in the general, but did you ever look back? So what I did is I found this mapping tool from the University of Richmond, and it's in the show notes. It's really fascinating to look at, and let's pull it up here, let's look at it. This is an area, a Los Angeles area, where both the sides of my family at this point in history came from. And these maps are from the 1940s and 50s. You can see images kind of the old map, old redlining maps, laid over some current mapping tools, and so now you can hover over those old redlining areas. They're red, green, and yellow redlining areas. If you were in a green or yellow area, you could get a loan, but not in the red areas, right? We all know about that. You can't really see it very easily on here, but if you go to the website and you look on the left side, it shows you how these areas were described in the lending materials. So you look at one of the yellow areas, the text indicates that it is preferable because it has, quote, few foreign families and, quote, 0% Negroes, end quote. So if you move to a red area, you can see even more deliberate language in the description, calling out, quote, 20% foreign families and 5% Negroes. So it's crazy to think 5% is all you needed to have a redlined area. I mean, this is it's shocking, but it's also not, because like one of the first homes I ever sold as a realtor had title restrictions on the historical deed documents that of course became illegal. But at the time that they were put in place, they were restrictive of who could live in that house. But it does stick with you when you do this exercise and you think about your own family history and what that means and what passing down that generation means. So as another, just a still photo here, image, that shows you what I kind of learned specifically. If you look at my parents, let's see, my mom's parents bought in the city of Paramount in the 1950s, and my dad's parents bought in Long Beach in the 1950s. So from what I can see, I think their house was built in 53. But anyway, the stars on the maps roughly show where they were. Neither were in the yellow, as in declining area, and neither was in the hazardous area or a red area. So what does that mean? Well, like I said before, it means my grandparents could buy a home, build the wealth in that home as the market went higher, pass it on to my parents, who could then invest the money in the stock market or their own home or whatever, and their own retirements, and then pass that on to me. Now, both my parents passed last year, so the benefit to me is pretty, 2 generations away. On the other hand, millions of people my age never had the wealth that I have and the privilege that I have because of this stupid racist law from 60, 70, 80 years ago. And this simple injustice makes it harder for us as a country to respond to any number of things, and in the context of what I like to talk about, the challenges around climate change. So this is not a revelation. We've talked about intergenerational wealth for a long time, but I think the difference here is bringing it to a very personal level. Doing your own family kind of privilege genealogy, if that's a thing. People like to use websites and look up where their family comes from. Add this to the mix. And then, so what do we do with this information as a society? Well, of course, I reject the argument that people make that we have no responsibility for what past generations have done. If you walk into a landscape and it's dirty and there's trash everywhere, you're going to clean it up. I mean, I love my country, I'm patriotic, I want to fix what's wrong with the country, and that necessitates understanding where that problem came from. And we can do these things and repair. We know what needs to be done. We know how to do it. Other countries have done it. And we can do it without asking people to give up their family nest eggs, contrary to what Fox News would like you to believe. So this is part of what I'm trying to do on my trip, is kind of reflect for myself, what is my contribution going to be as I get along in years and think about retirement and whatnot. But I think for all of us, the lesson of intergenerational wealth and looking up your own family history is awareness and normalizing this conversation about intergenerational wealth. Like I said before, people do genealogy, history, research, add this to it. That raised awareness means that the next time we have a decision in front of us as a country about how to deal with the consequences of that intergenerational injustice, I think we're more likely to know what to do about it, and we're going to have more of a consensus on it. So maybe I'm optimistic and a little naive, but I feel like that's probably the only way we can go. So I promised you a dog. She is now laid out under my feet, so I'm going to bring her up here so we can say goodbye. She's really cute down here. You should see this. There she is. So I promised you a dog, and she's just being absolutely adorable. And she's been stuck inside all day, so she really wants to go outside. I want to tell you about the next stop on the tour. We are going to do an amazing interview with a person that I have met who works on the Navajo reservation and works on what's called coal transition. And it's a conversation about privilege, but it's not about 60, 70, 80 years ago. It's about what's happening right now and what we can do to address it. It's very hard to have a serious conversation with a dog licking your ear. So I'll save it for next time. See ya.